Hello everyone, my name is Nilendra and today I am going to tell you how we can get the API response in Node.js. So without wasting the time, let's jump into the coding section. But before that, I would like to tell you that there are a couple of methods by which we can do this, such as we have HTTPS, we have request, which is going to be deprecated, and we have Axios. Apart from that, we have node fetch and we have super agent, GOT, so many things are there. So today in this particular session, I would like to cover up this and node fetch. So these are the two things which I would like to cover up in this particular video, and let's see how it works. So first of all, I'm going to tell you about Axios. Before going to jump into the coding, first thing I would like to tell you that if somebody wants to use this particular feature of Node, then that guy first have to install this by using a command called npm I. So this is the step number one that you have to do before going to start. Second thing is that uh, this is something which I would like to highlight that Axios is a promise based request library. So if I'm talking about the promise, then as you guys already, I'm assuming that you guys are already know about the promises in the JavaScript, and a couple of more features I would like to highlight it here. That this Axios is having the ability to transform the request and response data to JSON automatically. So the third thing is that it automatically transform request response data JSON. So this is one of the very important feature of this Axios. That's the reason people are moving towards the Axios, this particular uh, library. And yes, of course, there is one more feature that I would like to highlight it here is that with the help of Axios, you can do uh, multiple requests. So you can handle multiple concurrent requests here with the help of this as well. So now, without wasting the time, the description is, I think this description is sufficient for you guys to understand. So before going to start, the folder which I created. So let me open the command line interface and I'm going to write down start OS. So as you can see this particular package is now installed. So I already installed this Axios so that it is going to show you the message updated one package and updated four packages. Okay, so now we can start the coding. All right. So as you can see that we just installed the npm package of that particular module, and we can create a constant and we can give the name called Axios the same name. Okay. So now we required it. We have to require this particular package. Now we can create another constant URL, and whatever the URL that we need to get, we can mention that URL here. So let me first create the skeleton, then we will jump into the URL part. I'll tell you how we can get the mock uh, get URL from the server. So now I'm using async and await. So before going to use the async and await, I would like to tell you about it a little bit. So async is something whenever you are using async in front of any function, which basically means the function will always return you a promise. So as you can see this in our current scenario, I'm going to use async. Yes, y and c async. And what will be the name of the method? Is this. I'm using the arrow function. Arrow function is one of the best feature of the ES6. Now I'm using the error rendering by using the try and catch. Okay. That if there will be any error, then we'll get to know about it easily. These are the best practices that you can also follow. So as I mentioned that whenever you are writing async in front of any function, okay, so that function will going to return you a promise. Okay. But this is something which is async. Now I'm going to tell you about await. So basically await is something which only works inside a async function. So as we mentioned async in front of this function. So await is something which we will utilize inside this particular try catch try block. Okay. So async is something await is something which only works inside a async function. And await keyword basically as I told you that it makes the JavaScript wait. Listen to me very carefully. It makes the JavaScript wait till the promise is resolved or rejected. Okay. But now you guys have second thought in your mind if you are going to write a wait in front of a function, right? So it's going to stop the entire execution of the JavaScript. Then the answer is no. It will only going to pause that function execution. Okay, where you mentioned await. Okay, and it will going to resume when the promise is settled. I mean, whenever you get a response uh, from the promise, whether it is resolved or reject, whatever it is. Okay, so I'm going to tell you constant. We can write down writing the response, and I'm writing await. Okay, so I'm going to write down the await in front of this particular method which I'm going to use. So as we mentioned that we are installing this particular library, so I have to use the get method is Axios. This is the core method where we can pass a URL which we created here. Okay, inside this. So now we pass the URL and we put inside a response constant. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another constant called data, and inside the data, what I'm going to do, I'm taking the response dot data. Okay. And in the console, let's try to print console.log data. This is the try block. Now let's jump into the catch. In case if anything happened to the API call and we are not getting the response that we are expecting from the API, then it will go into the catch block. Okay. Now this function I'm going to call it from here. Inside this function I'm again passing the URL which we are going to mention inside this constant. Now I have taken this JSON placeholder, this dummy URL, just for the testing point of view. Let me put this here, and now we are going to run the application. Let's see how it works. So the command, as I already told you, that we have to use this node. So whatever the file that we created here is servers.js. So with this keyword node server.js, we are calling this particular file. So as you can see this, we are getting the data. So I'm using this dummy URL API. This, so you're getting the user ID, title completed. Okay. So this is the response that we are getting from it. So this is how it works. We're using the npm Axios package. Now, before going to jump into the node fetch, let me just remove it completely. But let me comment it so that you guys can compare it as well. So now I'm going to jump to another way of getting the API response in the Node.js, that is node fetch. Okay, so node fetch is something which is, you can say that, is basically same as window.fetch. Okay, and again, just like Axios, it also supports for promises. Okay, and the implementation of the native fetch API for Node.js is basically, it's taken from window.fetch. Similarly to that, as I already told you, async and await, we again are going to utilize it in the same node fetch as well. Example. So without wasting the time, let me do one thing. So step first that we have to do, to start. Okay. So this is something which we have to do before going to start. So here we go again. So I already opened the command line interface. So I will try to install this node fetch. So let's see. One package is looking updated. One package. Okay. The node fetch is now installed and the version is 2.6.1. All right. So let's jump into the coding part now. So now we are using the node fetch. Okay. So we have to do the same thing there. You have to write down a constant. Okay. And we are writing fetch where now what I'm going to do, as I already installed the node fetch. So the only thing that I have to do now is to write down a function. So let me just write down a simple function called get data. Okay. I'm going to create a constant inside it called report or whatever the name you want to give. Now, as I already told you, we are using a sync and await, which I already explained you earlier in Axios above. So what I'm going to do, I'm just copying this async and I'm going to put it in front of this function. Inside this function now we can use await. Okay, so I'm using await. Inside this function there is a method called fetch. Inside this method we have to pass the URL just created above. Okay, so I'm utilizing the same URL here as well. Now let me create another variable called response. Now, there is one issue in this particular node flash method is that we have to use our weight again, and for this particular constant which we utilized it, so we have to call this method called JSON, which I personally believe it's one of the extra steps. You can say that this is the extra step that we have to follow here in node fetch. It's not going to parse JSON for us. as Axios has already provided us. Okay, so in the Axios, we don't have to call this JSON method, but here in the node fetch, we have to do this. Okay, so whatever the response that we'll get, we have to again call this JSON method. That is extra step, but it depends on user to user, whatever you want to use, node fetch or Axios. So it's completely dependent on you. Now this is the method which we just created. Let me call this get data. So I'm passing any URL inside it. Okay, this is the URL that we already declared. Let's see whether it will work for us or not. So as you can see this, it is also giving you the same output which we got for the Axios. So the main difference is this extra step. Apart from that, there is one more feature that we can do. The Axios is that in Axios we have a facility to use a feature called, suppose if you have multiple APIs. Okay, for example, if you have multiple APIs and you want to use it, so we can utilize this method in Axios. So let me give you a rough example. Suppose you you have one URL1, rough example, and if you have two URL2. Okay. So with the help of this method, just like we have in promise.all, right? So here also we can utilize it like this, comma 2, okay, and then rest of the things are same. So this is one of the best feature that Access provides to you. You can utilize or you can use multiple APIs together in Axios that is not provided in NodeFetch. Okay, so yeah, so this is something which I would like to tell you in this particular video. Thank you guys for watching it, and hopefully you like this video. Thank you.